Yeah, because Ajahn Dhammasira will be sometimes away next few weeks and months, I thought that there were a series of talks about great disciples of the Buddha, and good way to start is to talk about recollection of the Sangha. The Buddha mentions it in many discourses, practice of recollecting the Sangha, and talking about the benefits of it and how to do it. Yeah, the Buddha was not only perfect in knowledge and conduct and developed supreme purity and compassion and wisdom, but he was also unsurpassable trainer of trainable people and teacher of devas and humans. So, as supreme teacher, he had the ability to guide others to liberation and awakening. And yes, similar like the sun is not just bright and radiant for itself, but the sun also provides the energy for the whole ecosystem of the planet Earth, for all beings living on it. And so in a similar way, we could say that the Buddha did not only realize awakening for himself, but illuminated the life of countless beings and led them to liberation. About 10 years ago, I think one of the first times when I went home to visit my parents after I ordained, I was talking with my cousins and trying to explain them the purpose of the monk's life, that it's about developing the Noble Eightfold Path with the purpose to realize the same awakening that the Buddha himself realized. And then one of my cousins asked me if anyone else ever realized awakening, actually. Because it's not, thinking, there could also, might be, actually, maybe there might be no one who ever realized it. It was just an aspiration and no one actually realized it ever. And he actually was surprised to hear that not only one or two people, but several thousand people realized the same spiritual attainment as the Buddha himself, already during the 45 years when he was still alive and teaching. And probably at least several 10,000 people realized at least the first stage of awakening, streamentry, being secure to realize the goal. Then partly the word Sangha has two meanings, is used for two different things. For the conventional Sangha, the monastic community of monks and nuns, and the second meaning is the noble Sangha, which consists of monks, nuns, and lay people, and the noble Sangha of people who have actually realized the teaching of the Buddha themselves. One of the four stages of awakening, streamentry, once return, non-return, and Arahant. And the last one then is equal to the liberation of the Buddha. The Buddha says, for example, in the Samanapala Sutta, he says, then the knowledge of the Arahant, this is the highest spiritual attainment, the highest fruit of the holy life, of the life as samana, as monk or nun. And also the noble Sangha, it doesn't consist only of human beings, but also of devas, of divine beings, of gods, which have become disciples of the Buddha and realized one of the four stages. So it's not only a human Sangha, but also a Sangha of devas. Yeah, and among those 1,000 of Arahants and 10,000 of other noble disciples, the Buddha mentions 41 monks, 13 nuns, and 20 male and female lay disciples as so-called great disciples, the Maha Savok, and with some special outstanding qualities, and encourages us to emulate them. And then depending on your own abilities or aspiration, the Buddha gives different options whom you might take as role model, you could say. And for example, the Buddha, for lay people, the Buddha recommends them not to take monks and nuns as example, but other outstanding lay people who are noble disciples. And some of them, they exceeded in different qualities. Some of them were great supporters of the Sangha and very generous. Some were great meditators. Some had great Dhamma knowledge and were very good at Dhamma talks and giving Dhamma discussions. And obviously then if someone wants to attain or if someone wants to become or is already a monk and nun, then he should take outstanding monks and nuns as example. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The devas.
Mm-hmm.
I would have assumed that the devas would be quite progressed in their spiritual development. But then I remember, I think there's one sutta, I don't know the name, where the deva asked the Buddha about their still disturbed mind, and then he recommends cultivating metta. So then I thought, what chance do I have? Even the devas still have fear, and apparently you can attain enlightenment in one lifetime. But
Yes.
I'm not thinking about anything like this for me, because if I settle down my mind and if I lead a virtuous life, I'm more than happy with what I have achieved. So I don't feel that I have to strive for enlightenment, because I think that's just so far away in my lifetime. I thought, what should I aim for?
I think it's good to have this aspiration to realize at least streamentry, the first stage, in terms of that one has at least the aspiration that whatever good qualities I develop may lead to realizing the Dhamma. And because this is the only security, in a way, this is the only way how one can really get secure in terms of not falling away from the Dhamma again or from the spiritual practice. And so it's a good, I think it's good to have at least the aspiration to develop qualities, good qualities with this aim.
And would that be, where would be the first jhana in that context? Would that be there? Because I even think I won't even be getting there. So I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear people, yes, I want to achieve this and I want to achieve that, and then I'm a bit more humble about these things, what I think I can achieve.
Yes. I think it's good to have the general aspiration to realize the Dhamma, but then to set one's intention on the causes in terms of actually doing the development of, let's say, developing mindfulness, developing samadhi, developing effort, something like that. I think that's obviously just having this intention, whatever, that one wants to attain jhana or awakening, it will not lead itself. Just like, for example, if you just think about, I want to get to Brisbane, then just the thought, repeating the thought will not get you to Brisbane, but you actually have to drive a car and whatever, something like that. And so I think that's important to keep this in the background, that one directs the intention or the willpower to the causes, rather than just thinking, I want this, I want that, like more on this line. And the questions about the devas, generally they have higher qualities than an average human being. However, they still they have some entanglement either with sensuality or with samadhi. So from that perspective, they're also fettered to some extent. Some of them they're very receptive to Dhamma instruction, and generally they also, in terms of they rejoice in good qualities, and so they are often quite receptive. And but there are some devas are more like just entangled in their existence, just like human beings in principle. Some have a broader overview, and also Dhamma practitioners and noble disciples, and then up to very high devas, which are the pure abodes, the Sudavasa devas, which are only non-returners, or Arahants then. So so there are also devas which have a very high level of Dhamma practice, but most of them they are still to some extent caught up, even though they are quite receptive. Yes.
I was thinking along the same lines as Astrid.
Mm.
Not aspiring to attaining balance life.
Mm.
So I asked Bhante Dhamma,
Mm.
is it okay to, when we do something good,
Mm.
to wish to be born into a Buddhist family,
Mm.
to be able to practice?
Mm.
But he said that's like wishing for a rebirth.
Mm.
What's it called?
For becoming or for birth, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not right. It's to think like that.
Mm.
It will happen.
Mm.
Want it.
Mm. I think that's as I said, it's like I would rather aspire to practice a noble eightfold path as far as possible, in terms of actually having aspiration to realize the Dhamma specifically, with this aim, and because it also builds an inclination of the mind, and I think that so I think it's important for that purpose, and I think ultimately the purpose of the Dhamma practice is to, obviously, one is practicing Noble Eightfold Path for the purpose of realizing liberation. The purpose of the Noble Eightfold Path is the Noble Eightfold Path is the practice that leads to dukkha nirodha, to the realization of the cessation of dukkha. And so if one is not aiming at that, then it's not really following the purpose of actually the Noble Eightfold Path in a way. And I think it's also good to be clear about that one uses this teaching, this practice that the Buddha taught for that purpose, as to one's best abilities to develop these qualities that the Buddha taught to the best of one's abilities, and basically having the aspiration that one realizes the Dhamma, because that is the purpose of the Dhamma practice. And I think not to think in this way is in a way strange for me, at least, because it has a very clear purpose and direction. So obviously one may feel not confident whether one will realize it or not in this lifetime, but I think at least having this intention, that I think that's important. And I think also recollecting the Sangha is important, because the Dhamma comes only to life to the extent to which it actually changes the life of people and transforms them into noble beings. So that's the purpose of the Noble Eightfold Path, to transform you into a noble being gradually, and that one becomes more and more a model of wisdom and compassion and purity of oneself. And then by recollecting the Sangha, we see that the teaching of the Buddha is not just an abstract theory or some collection of nice ideas, but that this method that the Buddha was teaching was applied by people before us, and they were struggling just like we did. And they they were successful and made it and realized the Dhamma. And so it gives us also more confidence that we can do the same, that this is possible. Yeah, the Buddha describes sometimes the beneficial effects of the recollection of the Sangha nicely, for example in Anguttara Nikaya, books of 11, Sutta number 11. When a noble disciple recollects the Sangha, on that occasion his mind is not obsessed by desire, aversion and delusion. On that occasion his mind is simply straight, based on the Sangha. A noble disciple whose mind is straight gains inspiration in the meaning, gains inspiration in the Dhamma, gains joy connected with the Dhamma. When he is joyful, rapture arises. For one with a rapturous mind, the body becomes tranquil. One tranquil in body feels pleasure. For one feeling pleasure, the mind becomes concentrated. This is called a noble disciple who dwells with an even mind amid an unbalanced population, who dwells unafflicted amid an unafflicted population. As one who has entered the stream of the Dhamma, he develops the recollection of the Sangha. So yeah, one can see that if one directs the mind to this sort of inspiring object of the qualities of the disciples of the Buddha, that then the tendency for defilements get weaker. Not just that basically one can replace one kind of thinking like associated with defilements or mind states associated with defilements with other mind states by directing it to another object. And then based on that, the mind gets more straight, more filled with good qualities and uplifted. And this is even a way of developing samadhi actually. So one can develop samadhi based on the recollection of the Sangha. And the Buddha also says in this way the citta, the heart or the mind gets purified by effort, by recollecting the Sangha. And it's a way of developing samadhi, because it's also a pleasant abiding that pertains to the higher citta and that a noble disciple gains without difficulty. So usually this pleasant abiding, it's usually a description of samadhi actually. So one can, the samadhi is not only in terms of what people usually think of meditation, but also in terms of the qualities of the citta become more unified, like bright, in the sense that usually there are these different conflicting tendencies in the citta of good and bad qualities, and then by recollecting the Sangha, the qualities in the citta become more unified and beneficial. And he says, you should develop the recollection of the Sangha while walking, sitting, standing, and lying down. So one can, recollect the Sangha obviously in different situations. And he also says you should develop it while engaged in work or while living at a home in a house full of children. So one can also encouraging people to recollect the Sangha also while, for example, working or whatever, with family life. And we are usually people that like to think about things that are upsetting or disturbing or distracting. And instead one could think about recollecting qualities of disciples of the Buddha. And this is a kind of thinking that leads to samadhi, unification of the citta. And also, maybe as additional, stupa is an external form of recollecting the Buddha or disciple of the Buddha. The purpose of a stupa, the Buddha describes it like this, that a disciple of the Buddha is worthy of a stupa because then people recollect this is the stupa of this disciple, and by that the heart gains confidence and is uplifted. And because of that, obviously the mind gets developed to a higher level, and then also to a sort of higher form of rebirth. And so this is where, in this way, a stupa is external help to recollect the Sangha, you could say. But the Sangha is also part of the triple refuge, so I think it's also good to reflect who are these disciples of the Buddha that you see as your refuge in terms of personal affection or personal inspiration. We somehow have this triple refuge, but who are actually these people that you find inspiring or did you take as refuge in terms of the Sangha? And is it more contemporary monks or nuns that are still alive, or who lived in the 20th century, like whatever, Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Man, or more, for example, great disciples of the Buddha who were actually living at the time of the Buddha? And where the standard description of recollection of the Sangha that you often chant is very general, like this Supatipanno, Bhagavato, Savaka Sangho. These are the Blessed Ones' disciples who have practiced well. So it's important to actually not just chant the Supatipanno, Bhagavato, Savaka Sangho and so on, but to feel this recollection with some flesh and blood, then to read biographies of monks or contemporary Dhamma practitioners and the teaching. Maybe sometimes they're talking about their own Dhamma practice, and also reading in the Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka about the life and conduct and teaching of great disciples, or for example also the Theragata, the verses of senior monks and nuns, and where they often talk about their own Dhamma practice, about their own struggle and about their own success of Dhamma practice. And then this way you can get examples what it means to practice well, which aren't the Blessed Ones' disciples who have practiced well, but what does it mean to practice well? And then we can actually see by these examples, this is what it means in this way, they practice in this way, and this is what it means to practice well, and also gaining understanding why are those who practice well worthy of respect, and gaining this inspiration in meaning and in the Dhamma that the Buddha describes in this short discourse. Basically, you see how they practiced, and then you becomes clearer how to practice the Dhamma. In the Theragata and Theragata, the verses of the senior monks and nuns who were living at the time of the Buddha, you can find on the one hand cases of monks and nuns who face danger or difficulties in their Dhamma practice with nobility and calm already firmly in place. But you can also find cases where monks and nuns have to overcome great weakness or discouragement or misfortune and to realize awakening. And both is inspiring to see, either that people are already stable and unshaken, or that people are very, very unsure and then overcome their difficulties. Both can be inspiring. The Buddha also says if you have difficulties to develop the four satipatthana, four foundations of mindfulness, you can direct the mind to an inspiring theme or inspiring topic, like recollecting the Sangha, to wake up the sluggish mind, or to gather the scattered mind, or to give rise to joy or calm, And then once the mind has more joy, or is more collected, then you can try to go back to practicing, for example, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of breathing. So this is also one benefit, that you can uplift the mind by the recollection of the Sangha before practicing, for example, mindfulness meditation or any other meditation theme. Yes.
And how we can recollect of Sangha?
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Mm-hmm.
give me an example?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do it mostly by actually reading some text from the Sutta and Vinaya Pitaka, where I can see how they behave and what they're teaching and how they relate to other beings. And this is one way. Or then, for example, with memorizing Theragata or Therigata, like verses of, for example, memorizing verses of Venerable Sariputta, memorizing verses of Venerable Ananda. Usually in their verses they express some qualities that they had themselves. And so this is a way of basically remembering their qualities. Then, and for example, if you chant the Supatipanno and so on, you can also just think about some disciple that you find inspiring and their qualities. So whatever you find most inspiring, either monks you have already met, or some other practitioners that you have already met, or some, like whatever, Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Ananda, and their qualities, and you remember these different disciples, or like just one, to bring them to mind. That is mostly how I would do it. Similar like with, for example, chanting the Iti episode, and actually basically if you read something about the life of the Buddha, and then you can basically, this just one word like Vichacharana Sampano or Sugato Lokavidu, and so like the knower of the world. And then, but if you actually read how the Buddha is teaching and about his knowledge, then you know what this means. To gain some knowledge of what does it mean he's the knower of the worlds, or what does it mean he's perfect in knowledge and conduct. And then you chant and think about the meaning of these words. I think that's similar with the Sangha, that when you're just the same way you recollect, you think about one or some disciples and their qualities that you find inspiring. I would do it like this. The Buddha also mentions that one can use recollection of the Sangha to overcome fear or feeling insecure, and because one recollects people who are already free from fear. So recollecting them also can uplift the minds then that you yourself become at least less fearful, or directing these minds to the quality of fearlessness. And on a more profound level, the Buddha says they are free from fear because they are free from desire, aversion, and delusion, and from defilements. And so if fear arises, then they're already free from fear. What is this defilement in me that I have not abandoned, so that the fear arises? On a more profound level, you can also reflect like this, that they do. What is actually this? What kind of obstruction, or what kind of mind states, or what kind of quality gives rise to this fear that these disciples have already abandoned? Probably the best way to recollect the Sangha, if you have already met some outstanding Dhamma practitioners, or if you have lived together with them, like some monks, and recollecting them, their conduct, how they behave with other people, how they relate to other people, and their teaching and their qualities. I think it can also be very good if you have met, so that they do recollect like someone who you've actually met. Obviously, will make a usually more powerful impression than just, let's say, reading discourses of the Buddha, and then you can also get some feeling what the qualities of Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Ananda, and so on are. But it's more impressive if you actually see them. Obviously, it's more if you just read a biography of some. Probably, if you just read a biography of Luang Por Man, it's different than meeting Luang Por Man. So obviously, it will be more inspiring to if you have met actually someone like that, and then recollecting them like this. Yes, yes. Very good, yes. But then even better, one can live together with them for a whole year or something like that. It's even nicer.
In the Mangala Sutta, the highest blessing is sort of this: you don't associate with the fools, but you associate with the wise people. And that would be, of course, the Sangha, like the official Sangha, but also other people who try to live virtues.
Yes, exactly.
Also to listen to the teaching, to the
Yes.
teachings.
Yes, that's these first two lines of the Mangala Sutta, where it says to not associate with fools and associate with wise people. This is sort of a blessing, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
That it also says seeing the Sangha from time to time
Mm-hmm.
and having discussions are also Mangala.
Yeah, exactly. Samana dasana, samanancha dasanang, like seeing samanas or like monks or recluses, and Dhammasakacha, exactly, it's also a mangalang, exactly, it's a blessing, exactly, yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, I think it's also good to remember that the recollection of the Sangha is not so much just worshipping some amazing beings and always feeling inferior, but the idea is to uplift the chitta by the recollection of the Sangha. That we see what a human being can realize and develop, and we aspire to develop the same qualities. So rather than think, oh, Venerable Sariputta is so amazing and so great, and I will never be as great as Venerable Sariputta, and he's so amazing. I think it makes one more like helpless, basically. You just think, these great Kubajans, they are so amazing and so on. But then you actually you think you're just this miserable earthworm and never get to their level. And the Buddha actually discourages this kind of thinking. For example, for monks, he even says, you should become like Venerable Sariputta, rather than telling you, you will never become like Venerable Sariputta anyway. You don't even have to try, something like that. But he or like for lay people, then he gives like exemplary lay people who are non-returners. So he doesn't say, you shouldn't even try to become non-returner. You just hopeless case and just do a little bit of punya, and then you die, and the next in 100,000 lifetimes you will become whatever, maybe something. Yeah, so. I think it's important to keep this in mind, that seeing these qualities of these other people, that we inspire to develop the same qualities, and that we are able to do that. But I think often people have the feeling that in comparison to these great Dhamma practitioners, they are like nothing special, or they just think, just an ordinary person. Nothing special, and I think that if we believe this is actually we just limit ourselves with our own identity views. This is actually a form of Sakkaya Ditthi and conceivings which limits our own Dhamma practice, and it's basically a trick of the defilements who want you to stop, to put forth effort. They just think, I probably don't get very far anyway, and I will never become like these great practitioners. And then because of that, we never make a great effort. We just think we can't make an effort anyway. And then we just stay as we are. and we don't really put our whole heart into Dhamma practice. Well, if we think, we can also become like these practitioners, then we make a great effort and are inspired to practice like this. The Buddha describes his teaching as a training in virtue, samadhi, and wisdom. And as I said before already, the purpose of this training is to transform you from an ordinary person into a noble being with sublime qualities. And whether you remain an ordinary person or become a noble disciple with sublime qualities depends on your own actions.
So one should aim high.
Yes, I think so, yes. And obviously, if we just continue with our lives as usual and with our own preoccupations and doing a little bit of this and that, and then we'll just remain an ordinary person. You just stay like this as you are. And but if you train yourself, if you apply this training of the Buddha, the Noble Eightfold Path, the training in virtue, samadhi, and wisdom, then by this training, your actions and your inner qualities of your heart will become more and more sublime, and you will become a sublime noble being because of you undertake this training. And that's the purpose of the whole teaching. That's why the Buddha was teaching that people realize, develop this training, and then become noble disciples, noble beings themselves. And the more you dedicate yourself and your whole life to this training, the quicker this transformation will happen. So by recollecting the qualities of the noble disciples and their life, we gradually gain a deeper understanding what it means to practice well and follow the example. And in this way also, the Buddha says in this short sutta, this way we develop the recollection of the Sangha to enter the stream of the Dhamma. This is when you recollect these outstanding Dhamma practitioners and apply the training, the teaching of the Buddha to develop the same qualities, recollecting the qualities of these great practitioners, then you develop your mind in this direction, and then because of that you enter the stream of the Dhamma and follow their example. This is also why the Buddha calls the recollection of the Buddha and the Sangha the unsurpassable recollection. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, Books of Six, Sutta number 30. And what is the unsurpassable recollection? When one settled in faith, settled in devotion, full of confidence, recollects the Tathagata, or a disciple of the Tathagata, this is the unsurpassable recollection for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the passing away of pain and dejection, for the achievement of the methods, for the realization of Nibbana. This is called the unsurpassable recollection. So this effect of the purpose of the recollection of the Sangha, and as I said, we recollect the qualities, apply the teaching to develop the same qualities that that these disciples have developed already, and then follow the example. And in this way, it leads to purification. For myself, I was always mostly inspired by the great disciples who lived together with the Buddha. And I always felt the strongest connection with them, rather than any living monk. Because they have the most outstanding qualities, And at least for myself, if I think about it, then they are my main refuge object. Not so much, even though I find, let's say, Ajahn Maha or Luang Man inspiring, I still find the great disciples of the Buddha more just they're the greatest disciples, so I just find them most inspiring and feel at least stronger connection to them. Maybe it seems strange that to some people, because I've never met them, but if you read the suttas and the Vinaya, you can still read how they act and see the qualities, and by developing the same qualities, you can still get close to them and to the Buddha. So and if you develop these qualities, you can actually get closer to the Buddha and these great disciples than many people who were living at the time of the Buddha. It just depends on to what extent we develop our own heart. The more similar our heart becomes to these disciples, then the closer we get to them and to the Buddha. So we can still develop this connection to the disciples of the Buddha, and at least for myself, that's the most inspiring ones. So hope you use the recollection of the Sangha to develop joy, samadhi, and purify the citta, abandon defilements. And it's a nice thing to do. I found it enjoyable to prepare the Dhamma talks about Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Ananda, I think Venerable Mahakassapa and so on. It's a nice thing to prepare and think about these qualities of these disciples.